I have been often asked in the past, Ash, what is your favorite HeroQuest homebrew? Now that first part rhymed in ways that I didn't like, so I'm gonna have to follow it up. Sometimes magic, sometimes tragic. Let me show you how the gnome do. Questioning choices. Now this is not an exhaustive list of all of the homebrew that's out there, and this is not a video claiming that my favorite homebrew are like the top 10 of all time or whatever number we end up at. I didn't count. I don't know how many homebrews we have here. Although I will say that what I consider to be the best homebrew, and the reason that these particulars, some of them, are my favorite, are kind of one and the same. And that reason is, in my opinion, the best homebrew is the homebrew that allows you as a Zargon to use that homebrew as a tool, a resource for more homebrew, essentially making it your own, which is, in my opinion, the very spirit of HeroQuest. And so all of these are homebrews that I have used, that I would use at my table. If your favorite homebrew didn't make the list, please comment it down below, because I don't want this video to just be a resource for people who are like, what would Ash do? Nobody's asking that, but I want it to be a place where people can evergreen, come back and check out the comments below to see if anything was added. What homebrew do you use in your games? Everybody wins, because people who are looking for inspiration and who want to know if a particular piece of homebrew is right for them, if it's a commercial product or something they have to go through great lengths to print out and assemble or anything like that, they'll be able to look at the comments, and if there are a lot of hits for that same name, that same creator, or that same deck of cards or dice or whatever, that will convince them that that's the right thing for them. And homebrew creators will be able to see if there are any gaps, and or if a particular piece of homebrew was so good that they should make a version 2. So make sure you sound off in the comments below, and we will go over to the Harbinger and check out my top homebrew. Welcome home, brave heroes. I'm Ash. This is HeroQuest. Ignore the mess behind the curtain. Now, instead of building up to what my favorite or the top homebrew of all time or whatever it is, I'm just going to show you my favorite right out of the gate. That is Lestodante's Chaos Event deck. At my table, it doesn't get better. The Chaos Event deck is a set of 40 cards for the Evil Wizard player, Morcar, Zargon, doesn't matter. This fills in the lull in between Evil Wizard player turns when there are no monsters on the board. And it somewhat incentivizes the heroes to always try to keep a monster on the board, because if there are no monsters on the board, the Evil Wizard player gets to draw from the Chaos Event deck. Now, you get to, as Zargon or Morcar, keep this card secret. The card will tell you when you can play it, it will give you all of the effects, and the heroes won't know what hit them until it hits them. The artwork is hand-drawn, it fits the flavor of HeroQuest perfectly. In fact, I've gone on record before saying it might as well have been designed by one of the creators of the board game. Now I'm holding in my hands a UK-sized version of this deck, so it's important to know that they are developed with the UK EU version of the game in mind. That's the classic edition, meaning all of the monsters, or most of them, had one body point. They were very easy to kill. The game was a lot more about exploration. For that version of the game, and anybody still keeping it alive, these cards are awesome. For the more contemporary version of the game, these cards don't break anything. They are still extremely well balanced. I probably wouldn't use them in, like, the trial, just because the trial is already a meat grinder for new players, but if you're playing with a group of veterans, I would break these out immediately. And they have an expansion, the Elite of Chaos. You already have a very low chance of drawing the Elite of Chaos card, but if you do, then the Evil Wizard player will keep this until there is a Chaos Warrior, or Dread Warrior, on the board, and then they can power that monster up using a boon, a card drawn from the Elite of Chaos deck. You can turn that Chaos or Dread Warrior into a novice spellcaster, or into Slambo, or even into a Doomguard, and the balance still works, and for that reason, this is just my favorite. I love the Chaos Event deck. Honorable mentions are pretty much all of the rest of Lestodante's catalog, like the Witchlord spells, the artifacts, which brings the Frozen Horror treasures into the UK EU card size, the elf spells, which brings the US elf spells, poker-sized cards, into the smaller classic UK EU size, the nature spells, which expands what the druid can do, the night skills and bard spells, the ice spells, now bringing the Frozen Horror monster across the pond, and just pretty much any other gap you could think of is filled. I'm gonna give it to Lestodante for hero growth as well. There are probably more systems for growing heroes and providing some kind of skill point or level up system in some way than there are any other type of homebrew, except for individual campaigns published. That award's going to go to Giles McNeil for his Sunday Quest series. L'Estudiante's skill cards are designed to work with the 4 classic heroes. There are 11 cards for each hero. They are, again, very balanced. They feel like a native part of the game, and they come in both the classic UK, EU, and US and contemporary sizes. I do have videos looking at all of that stuff in depth, so go look for those and check that out if you want to see them. Moving on. I usually don't mention the Chaos Event deck without also mentioning in the same sentence the Power Dice. This is Nehecaron's version of the Power Dice, and they are going to be sized for use with the contemporary game. And I say sized because there's a size difference and even a material difference in the new game versus the old game. The classic HeroQuest used rounded corners or bevels on their wooden dice, and they are of a smaller scale. And I say that to say that Power Dice actually is a catch-all term, at least the way that I use it, and I think the way that a lot of people in the community also use it. Although Nehecaron's Power Dice are simply called Power Dice, they all kind of have the same function. A standard HeroQuest die is going to have 3 skulls, 2 white shields, 1 black shield. The Power Dice have different configurations, different combinations of these symbols on its faces. They should all be arranged accurately here in their Power Dice board. But as you can see, the blue dice are going to provide the monsters with an edge when it comes to defense. If you decide that, example, this orc should be more powerful, this orc in particular should be more powerful, it should be a little bit more defensive, then I would allow it to roll blue power dice. Now it has a higher chance of defending. Some sets of power dice, like the black, they're going to provide a noticeable effect that could be construed as good, whether or not you are a hero or a monster. The black set has 4 skulls, so it's going to give an edge to whichever side is attacking. However, it's going to provide a bit of a limitation for any hero because it's trading a skull for one of the hero's white shields. The aptly colored green dice are going to provide more shields. There are even some die faces that have multiple symbols, so you can actually roll 2 attacks by rolling 1 die. Not shown on this board, but also relevant are the Zargon dice, which have just the most, I think they're called legendary monster or legendary boss dice. These are the ones that I would use for Zargon, though. They are the most powerful, most dangerous dice designed for monster usage. Absolutely terrifying. Now, some of these sets just aren't going to make any sense when used on their own, so you really probably want to use these in a way that combines them with the existing combat dice. Instead of replacing a person's loadout, just add the die. And then as the heroes progressively get through quests and start to steamroll things, you can add more of these dice to the monsters. If the heroes suddenly hit a brick wall and they're becoming very weak and feeble, perhaps they had a total party wipe and they weren't able to get any of their equipment, and now they've got to start back over and they're already in the frozen horror and they have no gold, you might allow them to find some treasure that gives them some of these dice on their weapon or on their armor, or an accessory, something like that. Those are just ideas off the top of my head. Now, I'm showing you Nehecaron's version of the power dice. The pricing, because of the location, order amounts, whatever, may be inaccessible to some. There are actually quite a few sellers that offer different versions, different qualities of these dice. Most of them will follow the same convention, the same format of skull to white shield to black shield ratio. Case in point, I got these from HeroQuest way back. They are the black dice and they are sized for use with classic HeroQuest, and they are wooden. They're going to have 4 skulls on them, just like Nehecaron's power dice have 4 skulls on their faces. You may also hear these called the German dice if you are looking at older articles, because there was a German website that offered a version of these power dice specifically. They, I believe, were the first ones to do so, thus inspiring other creators around the world to make their own. Where Nehecaron earns my exclusive praise is my next homebrew, the Old World Armory. This is available from Forges of Nuln on Etsy, and it is a deck of weapons, armor, accessories, and you can even get a separate deck of consumables, all kinds of different potions, that will utilize the power dice. They are not unlike the Advanced Armory cards. I do really like that they are designed around the power dice. I really like that they have gold prices. I'm not a super fan of keywords in HeroQuest, just because I feel like that could scale out of control very quickly. And keywords always means you have to look stuff up. These do use keywords. I don't terribly mind it because there are a lot of other good things going on here, and this kind of does have to go along with keywords in some cases. if you're going to make a deck of this scale. There's no doubles in here. These are all completely original weapons and armor and accessories. I'm gonna sound like a broken record throughout this video, but I do have a video where I'm looking at these in much more detail, so check that out if you are interested. Maybe you are interested in making your own homebrew for HeroQuest, your own narration, your own quests, your own mechanics, your own traps, your own monsters, your own progression. I have not seen anything like the Quest Builder's Handbook to fulfill that specific set of needs. This is distributed by Spectrum Games, and it has sections for story crafting, climactic battles, side quests, better map design, and better quest design. Use this as a reference book. Keep it at your side while you are designing quests on HeroQuest Builder. There's a lot of text in here. It's a lot of arranged theory crafting, a lot of examples. You're not going to read this and then have questions after. You're going to read this and know what to do. The only questions you'll have left are, hey guys, do you think you'd like to go on a goblin-themed adventure or an undead-themed adventure? Something I really appreciate is that Spectrum Games here understands that there is a critical path to pretty much every quest, sometimes called the OTP or One True Path, which is an unfortunate acronym because that also stands for the One True Pairing, you know, like Jaime Lannister and Brienne of Tarth. Most open world exploration games, which HeroQuest will be splitting hairs if we call it that, but you doubtless are going to have optional paths, little side rooms that are not necessary to visit in order to complete the one true path through that particular quest. And this explains that to you. It even references other books that talk about video game design convention, and there are numerous examples of this in the book. So to me, this is an invaluable tome, a must-have at your side if you are a homebrew aficionado. Alright, we're about to go off the rails a little bit. What's the best homebrew for miniatures? The accessibility of the following components varies greatly, so do not consider these to all be in the same kind of category. You have so many options for homebrewing new monsters, NPCs, heroes, bosses for the classic HeroQuest. You have entire worlds, entire franchises. The 28mm Reaper miniatures are fantastic supplements, and they are all very affordable. The scale can be a little bit different from miniature to miniature. For example, this dancer. She's a bit tiny, and not just because she herself is short, small in stature, what have you. She's actually slightly differently scaled because she doesn't have the heroic feet, hands, head, whereas this blacksmith dwarf, I believe, fits in greatly. I present goblins, harpies, vampires. There are many, and this is if you would rather keep the Games Workshop minis out of your game for whatever reason. If you are more inclined to use Games Workshop minis, well, you can use Warhammer, the old world, Warhammer Fantasy, Warhammer Quest. There are Citadel miniatures, past, present, and future. The older miniatures will fit perfectly, aesthetically, into your HeroQuest game. This is a Saurus, Lizardman, warrior that I kit bashed onto a base, and I gave him a base color that I consider to be this faction of its own. This is a skink archer from that same box, FT02 Swamp Monsters, I believe. I got a bunch of extra Warhammer Quest miniatures and was playing around with the coloring, so I kit bashed the spiders and rats and the bats and gave them a purple coat. I'm not done with them yet, but I also forgot which purple I used. Believe they're from FT01. That also came with a Minotaur, shown here kit bashed onto a double wide base and painted black because I wanted him to be part of my Beastman faction, although I think I'm going to end up painting them orange. A lot of people place HeroQuest in the Warhammer world, the old world specifically, so they like to utilize the lore and locations and races and magics from that world. I really like the direction that HeroQuest was being taken, in that they used those inferences of chaos for the UK and EU editions back then, but I also really like the path that the US edition was taking with its expansions, which was pretty much distancing itself from that universe of Games Workshop. And in the spirit of that, I have a lot of miniatures for use with my classic edition that I kit bash as well. This is a lizard man and just one of the most badass sculpts ever. This is from Dark World Village of Fear. Got a couple of extra of these guys and kit bashed them onto some bases. I gave them the same color as my Skink and Saros warriors. I have other miniatures from the Dragon Strike game because I feel like the scale and the design are so close that they seamlessly fit with HeroQuest. I didn't have to kit bash them onto bases. Their bases are just naturally almost exactly the HeroQuest bases. I've talked enough about the Classic Edition, but a lot of you are playing the Contemporary Edition, and you'd like miniatures for that, no doubt. I can champion another Avalon Hill produced game. Talisman, in its Classic 3rd Edition, has miniatures that are, again, perfect. 10 out of 10, no notes for HeroQuest use. Miniatures like this one, which you can use as Cassandra. And ironically, perhaps intentionally, probably very unintentionally, but Avalon Hill's 5th edition of Talisman has miniatures that are, so close to just the aesthetic. I mean, they are the exact same aesthetic. I would say that they are the exact same sculptors, same design conventions. The bases are the same size. I've looked at these in detail in another video again, but you can use absolutely any of them in HeroQuest as monsters, as bosses, as heroes, as NPCs. They will fit more than perfectly with your game. If you already have the Talisman 5th edition board game, you might as well just paint all of these guys in Citadel red, or what is that color? Probably a slightly different color of red for the Contemporary. But I mentioned Cassandra earlier, and I would 100% use this character for Cassandra forever. If you don't have the mythic mentor figure and you don't want to buy a bootleg, this guy will work perfectly for mentor. And on that note, he'll also work perfectly for Zargon if you want your Zargon to be an old bearded warlocky wizard. I mean, this guy looks a little bit like a pious camper, but he could just as easily serve as the Fire Mage, Balor, or Wardaws, or about the only thing we don't have in here is a Sir Ragnar, but we do have a Lady Ragnar. It's not HeroQuest Homebrew. We're a bit past that point, but it's stuff that you can use for HeroQuest Homebrew. Okay, so you don't want miniatures, you want furniture, miniatures of furniture. Again, I really like Reaper. They've got some really cool sculpts of some stuff that has some really nice details. I'm a little less critical of scale for furniture because the furniture for HeroQuest, both the old and new editions, can be wildly out of scale. So it's just something that I feel is a little bit more normalized. On the board here, you see I've got my metal because I didn't know I could get it in plastic, and I'd rather have it in plastic because it's slightly larger. And because I have a tendency to want my stuff to all be plastic if I can get it. We have our Sacrificial Maiden miniature on the plastic sacrificial altar. You can put whatever you want up here though. A rat, a skull, a Battle Master's Chaos Archer, Talisman 5th edition. If you want to go a slightly different route and get heaps of furniture all at once, Mantic has these furniture packs. I'm calling them furniture packs, that's not what they're called. They're like thematic scenery packs for dungeons and stuff, but they've got all kinds of stuff. They've got your crates, your barrels, your wells, the fountains, the single tile bookcases, which I would probably still take up 2 tiles. The drinking fountain / magic table / thing that you can turn to make the entire room or another mechanism activate. Treasure chests, barrels, tables. Those are some of my favorites, and that's why they're in this box. We've also got Walls of Fire, which these aren't Mantic. What are these from? I am not remembering where I got the Walls of Fire. Are they Mantic? Are they Reaper? Are they next level miniatures? It actually says so. I think that says Reaper. Yeah. Slightly translucent. You can use them to enclose the heroes in an ever-burning dungeon. The sword in the stone, that's a Mantic thing. You might have been looking at my dice. I was waiting to get around to that category. I made these, which is probably pretty obvious. The symbols on them look pretty bad. They're pretty crude. But I made my own dice, and they're not power dice. In fact, they're not even for HeroQuest. But if you want this kind of dice, you look for beads. You look for wooden, beveled, cube, bead, no hole. And you should get a link to a store. I got these from a Chinese store, and they came in a bag of like 500. So I was able to pick through and take out the like 300 best ones, toss the other ones because they had some sort of defects, some blackened knotting of the wood or what have you. They weren't all perfect, but I bought them in bulk, so it was fine. It was very cheap. And I painted them up because I really wanted my own custom dice for my own game, a game that I also wanted to make tiles for. And I made these tiles by buying. It's a very specific thing. You'll have to go on Amazon. You're looking for matte photo. Oh God, camera's going crazy. Matte photo backing. It's compressed paper, but you can print off paper and glue it to it and then color it with alcohol, and then it'll warp. And so then you, years later, cover the other side in some Mod Podge or something, and then it will warp back the other way. But I've got a lot of dungeon tiles that I made by using a rolling cutter along this backing board, and it can be really useful if you want to do it that way, or if you want to print out a picture of a dungeon tile, maybe something that you bought from a store. Print it out in full color paper, glossy, matte, whatever your preference is, and glue it onto some photo backing. It's a very good thickness. Feels like a board game tile. I had a few other Mantic miniatures that I had off to the side to show you. This cage, these barrels, this orrery, this standing candlestick, which could add a whole lot of atmosphere to your dungeon, and this pile of treasure, which is of course fake. I'm never letting my heroes get that treasure. The two tools that I can't show you here because we're at the table where all the physical stuff is, versus the PC, is of course obviously HeroQuest Builder, which allows you to create your own HeroQuest quests, front to back, top to bottom, inclusive of everything, monsters, quest notes, narrative, name. It even exports as a PDF so that you can combine multiple PDFs into your own campaign. You can share them over the cloud. You can download other people's quests natively right there on the platform, or you can just zip a bunch of them up into your own campaign and distribute them on a platform like Itch. It comes with all of the artwork and iconography and symbols that you could want to use to build your own quests out. It is, in my opinion, the complete replacement for HeroScribe. That's yesterday's tool. That is the now somewhat inaccessible tool, especially now that you can import your own resources into HeroQuest Builder. It's not quite as unlimited as HeroScribe, since HeroScribe is an offline tool, and you can basically literally import whatever you want into it. Squidge Monster is just a saint for bestowing us with this wonderful tool. Hot on its heels is not a replacement or a competitor in any way, but an enhancement called HeroQuest Master. And this allows you to, provided you are able to grasp the quest down syntax, take your HeroQuest Builder quest and make it playable in browser. It gives all of the monsters life. It automates quest note behavior. There are a lot of cool things you can do with it, and I've barely scratched the surface of it, so the creator, Ryu ASD, I'm sure would appreciate you checking it out and commenting what you think about it. Okay, this might be a reach for some of you, but I'm still going to count it because there was no official translation to English of the Japanese rule set of HeroQuest, and the Japanese version of HeroQuest is substantially different than every other version. And so, for that, we turn to Ispa Zargon's wonderful English translation of the Japanese quest book and rulebook. This is where Zargon becomes the Demon King. The quests have analogs to their globally different counterpart. At least most of them do, but a lot of the quests are completely original, and even the analogs play completely differently when you are playing with the Japanese rule set. In my opinion, it handles searches the best out of any version of HeroQuest. This is not a very pretty presentation of this book, it's just my printout of the PDF. One of these days, I'll get it printed out in booklet form, saddle stitch it, when I can do all of that and not be lazy. Speaking of Ispa Zargon, he also completely reworked the Dark Company quest, originally available in the HeroQuest Advanced Quest Edition. And I feel like it's not necessary at all for me to say this, but no, I don't mean Advanced HeroQuest. And so we get this amazing, beautiful, absolutely stunning and lovely quest pack for the Dark Company, styled to look like a classic Milton Bradley quest pack. It is sized to perfection. It is formatted to perfection. It looks like an absolutely legitimate Milton Bradley classic expansion, bringing all of the due honor and respect to this IP and this, as of yet, still lost quest. I guess I shouldn't call it lost when we have things like the dwarf and wizard quests out there. Obligatory. I think Wizards of Morcar is the wizard quest. This is not for sale. This is not something that you can buy, not even from Ispa Zargon. This is something that you can craft at home. And Ispa Zargon gives very clear, wonderful instructions and a very long video on how you can craft these components. This is just so amazing. I've had many a campaign book sent to me. Very original ideas, very experimental, some of them, very true to the original game, some of them, very blatant copyright infringement, some of them. But this one is a true work of love for the game. And so for that, it is the one that will make it into my top, best, favorite, whatever homebrew video. All right, finally, one of the key pieces of digital homebrew that I use is one of my own design. It's one of my own making. You can go grab it. It's absolutely free. It's the HeroQuest difficulty calculator. It has a couple more things in it that I need to fix, namely some of the stats for the undead. But I have a couple of videos, one I think a live stream, and then one explanation video that completely line out the logic behind this tool and why I made it, and what my ideology is in having made it, and why I use the methods that I do, and why I think that they are very informed and good and will very much serve anybody who is working to make their own homebrew campaign using a lovely balanced scale of difficulty. It is a topic and a whole subject that is debated. It has been discussed throughout decades. This is my take. It's the one I stand firm by, and yeah, I'm tooting my own horn, but I think it belongs on this list. It does belong on this list. That's it. I've shown you my best, my favorite homebrew, my top homebrew. I have reviewed a lot of homebrew on this channel and a lot of stuff that isn't necessarily for HeroQuest at all, but stuff that I've still used for homebrewing. I've looked at a lot of different campaigns from a lot of different creators, some of which I've had to drop because of their usage of AI. But in this video, I show you the things that I would use now, today, if you were here wanting to play HeroQuest with me. What would you want to use if you were the Zargon? Make sure you comment that down below. Thank you so much for your kind attention this time, brave heroes. I have a bit of a mess to clean up, so I'm going to get going, but feel free to help yourself to some warm milk or some cold Earl Grey tea. You can combine the two and make a drink that is equally blessed and cursed. I will see you in the next exciting adventure, so until then, I bid you a fantastic rest of your day and an onward for now.